And DD India correspondent Alex Kadia is joining us live from Tel Aviv. Alex, first, what is the latest on the Cairo truce talks?
Well, we know that those talks are ongoing. Senior Israeli officials will meet with those mediating countries, Egypt, Qatar and the United States. The United States sending CIA Director Bill Burns to Cairo to continue these talks. The head of Shin Bet, Ronan Bar, Shin Bet is the Israeli security agency, as well as the intelligence chief David Barnea, will also be in Cairo to continue these talks. The urgency of which really brought home to many Israelis today, as the Israeli Defense Forces confirming that they have recovered the body, very sadly, of one of those hostages, 47-year-old Elad Katzir, who the IDF says was killed in captivity by Palestinian Islamic Jihad, really showing the pressure on those negotiators to find a deal, pressure reiterated by President Biden, who told Prime Minister Netanyahu to give his negotiators, the head of Shin Bet, the head of the Mossad, enough room to operate to reach a deal. President Biden also sending a letter to the Emir of Qatar and the President of Egypt for them to put pressure on Hamas to reach some kind of agreement. But at the moment, the last proposal by Israel, 40 vulnerable Israeli hostages, the women being held in Gaza as well as the elderly and injured, would be released against 700 Palestinian prisoners, including 100 serving life sentences. That was the last deal refused by Hamas. A new proposal by Israel has effectively gotten no response from Hamas, who say it is basically the same deal as last time. So clearly, despite that pressure, despite international efforts to get a deal, despite the heartbreaking tragedy of the body of a hostage being recovered and the devastating humanitarian situation in Gaza, at the moment, a deal seems still quite far away.
And Israel is also coming under increasing pressure for the strike on aid workers in Gaza. How is it likely to impact its operation in the region?
Well, Israeli officials and at the highest level are saying that they will do everything they can to make sure the series of mistakes, as they describe it, that led to the death of these civilian aid workers will never happen again. But you have a lot of criticism, both from the United Nations and from some of Israel's allies, saying that this is a systemic problem. We heard that from Jose Andres, the head of World Central Kitchen, who says that Israel has been either systemically or systematically targeting aid workers, or has not been too cautious about them getting caught in the crossfire. For months, the United States also putting pressure on Israel to put in place better processes to avoid aid workers, journalists and others being caught in the crossfire. So still a lot of pressure. What we do know from Israeli officials is that they say they will allow more aid to flow into Gaza, easing the pressure on those limited aid agencies that are able to work in Gaza. But we know the humanitarian situation will only get worse unless those aid agencies are allowed to do their jobs.
And Alex, with Iran threatening retaliation against the Syria attack, how's the conflict in the region likely to expand? What are the risks?
It's very likely, and that's the sense you get both from US and Israeli officials. They say they are on very high alert for strikes against US targets in the Middle East, or against, of course, Israeli targets. We heard from American intelligence sources speaking to the US news channel CBS, saying that a swarm of explosive Iranian drones could target US or Israeli targets in Israel or across the Middle East. That is one of the possible risks. We know from the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, he says the response from Iran and from Hezbollah is definitely coming. It's just a question of when. So you do have a sense of uncomfortable expectation here, being on edge in Israel, knowing full well that some kind of retaliation from Iran and Hezbollah will be coming in the coming days. We understand it'll happen before the end of Ramadan, meaning it will almost certainly happen in the next few days. The question then is, if there is a massive retaliation by Iran, whether or not Israel will then respond, and that will continue to spiral this conflict into a bigger, broader escalation. So, as we've just mentioned, those ceasefire talks ongoing, not having an enormous amount of success at the moment to try and pause the war in the south. Meanwhile, an all-out war could explode in the north.
Alex, thank you for those updates.